there! My name is Oddimus Prime, and welcome to our very first episode of Tech Specs, our new monthly show where we deep dive into either a character or a line or something within probably the Transformers franchise, but it could be other things as well. This episode, to celebrate some amazing recent releases, we are going to take a look at Transformers Powermaster Optimus Prime, or Ginrai, as you may know him if you're a fan of the Japanese continuity. Over to Moff!
Hi, and I'm PrimeTime Moff, and in this episode, you'll hear us talk about whether it's Ginrai, or are we just going to stick with Powermaster Optimus Prime? We'll discuss scale. Is MPG actually smaller than MP? We'll talk about what scale a Chug Ginrai should really be. Never mind what a true masterpiece scale should be. We'll compare it with alternate official and unofficial toys, and we'll talk about the exciting black release that we know is coming down the line, and so much more. So strap in and enjoy the ride.
Hey, Moff.
So, hey, yeah, I'm excited to talk about this one. I think from the moment this landed, and I did have the luck, and our viewers know this, I got it before you did,
Yeah.
and I drop it a little bit. In fact, actually, I think we recorded the day that I got it, and I was like, I'm not going to open it. I'm not going to open it. Oh my goodness, I'm opening this. It's amazing. So I am very excited to talk about it, and I think like you've kind of prepped your toys behind you. I
Mm.
have a selection, not everything, and we talked about this was not everything. I think we'll probably do a wee bit of a smaller one when the kind of I was going to say God when we get to the final release part of it, and I think the two of us have got that to discuss at some point as well, which one we're going for. But Power Master Optimus Prime, because he'll always be Power Master Optimus Prime for
Yeah,
us.
definitely.
As much as I know the masterpiece releases aren't, they're not Western releases. So in the same way, that there is controversy around Star Optimus Prime because Convoy's a Japanese name and Optimus Prime's a UK, the Western release. This is not Power Master Prime because it's not a Western release. But if it was to get a Western release, it'd probably be called Power Master Prime.
Exactly. I mean, it is Powermaster Prime. If we go back to sort of the early 2000s when we had the re-release Powermaster Optimus Prime in the commemorative series, it was God Jinrai, but it was Powermaster Optimus Prime as far as we were all concerned. But yeah, so we've decided to have a look at this particular figure as our inaugural episode of this show, because yes, the masterpiece MPG and standard masterpiece versions of this arrived relatively recently. I think some people probably got them just before Christmas, I think, and then we got it just after Christmas, and I got it like a week ago. I only actually opened my God Jim Rai 2 days ago. I just hadn't had a chance, but oh my God, it's lovely. But we'll get onto that in a few minutes. So how we're going to sort of structure this is we're going to have a bit of a chat about it, about the character and the our reasons for liking this particular version, and then we're going to have a look into the sort of a bit more of a deep dive into sort of canon in terms of where this version of the character has appeared, and then we're going to talk about toys, put some pictures up, and yes, hopefully not be an hour and 45 minutes like our rolling out episodes used to be.
Mhm.
So when was the first time you got hold of a Power Master Optimus Prime?
Mine's is an interesting one. So the first time I experienced it was from a family friend, a very good family friend, who I had fell away from Transformers. I didn't enjoy post third season Transformers. The when it got into what are really actually are real Transformers. The rest are all kind of re-releases of a lot of Diaclone and stuff. When it started to get into the Headmaster stuff, I just didn't like the plastic, the chunkiness. It didn't have the Earth modes. That was what had appealed to me originally. So I kind of fell away from it. So I didn't own any Headmasters or anything. My this family friend, who's a little bit younger than me, he got into Transformers at the point of kind of Headmasters. So he had a couple of Headmasters, and then he got a Power Master Optimus Prime, and I was like, "Oh, this thing's wonderful! Like it really is, really nice." They moved to Aberdeen, and we were just about to move into a caravan as my parents were building a house. And he said, I want you to have my Power Master Optimus Prime. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. living in the caravan was very, very tight space, so I had very limited space. So I took IQ, which I still have, the original IQ. The rest went in a box, so I literally, it was within a very short period of time. I got it. It went in a box to go into a garage that was meant to be safe storage, and I never got it back again, as did most of anything that pretty much wasn't in the caravan. Pretty much went. We never got it back. It went to a house with three kids, and the three kids were a bit unruly. They opened up that garage and started stealing all the toys out of the boxes because they were all storage stubs, so they all looked like they were still full. When we went to move out, they were not there. So it's always been a toy that I coveted in terms of I had been so close to owning it and I wanted it, and I have owned multiple versions. But that I remember just that the gimmick, the way it looked, everything about it being like, oh, I really like this. I can see why the kind of modern kids appreciate this version of Prime. I mean, he was still for a long period of time. He wasn't my Optimus Prime. My Optimus Prime was still my Optimus Prime. But as I say, there was still a connection. You know, that haiku has stuck with me and always stuck with me in the head of I need to own Power Master Prime. I own multiple copies because I'm an idiot. What about you? What was your first?
Well, for me, Powermaster Optimus Prime was my actual owned first Optimus Prime. My brother ended up getting original G1 Optimus Prime a year or so down the line from when they were released, and I missed out on him despite very much wanting him. I've made up for it now a little bit. But yeah, he was my first Optimus Prime, and I loved the figure. I loved the gimmick. I loved play. I played with him so much over that sort of Christmas and that sort of time. And I was the only one of my friends that had Power Master Prime because they all got normal Optimus Prime. Pa! Normal Optimus Prime. Um, so yeah, I really liked it, and sort of moving forward, I became good friends with a guy at school through our mutual appreciation of Power Master Optimus Prime, and me mispronouncing Haikyuu as Hick, and he's still like my best mate to this day, which is quite cool. So yeah, I've got a lot of love for it. My original Transformers, as I've probably mentioned in previous episodes, long time ago, we sold them on to a family friend back when I thought money was more interesting than toys. Foolish me. So I haven't got any of my original figures at all, but I have subsequently purchased sort of new versions. In fact, this particular Paramount Optimus Prime that I've got now, the G1 one, is I bought it off of a guy called Dave on the Transformers groups, and it was one of the first things I ever bought off of anybody in the groups, and I'm so happy with him. But now I have multiple versions of Paramount Optimus Prime in various guises. But yeah, so shall we talk about where Powermaster Prime fits into the whole canon, as it were?
Yeah, I'm up for that.
Cool. Okay, so I made some notes, so bear with me. So first thing to say, Power Master Optimus Prime did not appear in the Western cartoons at all. Not a single jot. Transformers, the cartoon ended with sort of headmasters. Power Masters weren't even a thing in the cartoon at all. And when Optimus Prime came back to life in the Return of Optimus Prime, he came back as his standard G1 body, despite the fact that the box art on the VHS had Power Master Prime on the box, thus confusing me and upsetting me for many years. Um, he is the only the second version of Optimus Prime release that got a Western release, other than I think in Japan there was sort of a couple of reissues at that point and maybe a couple of recolors. But other than that, this is only the second version of Optimus Prime to come out. Haikyuu is his little dude. We've already spoken about Haikyuu. The gimmicks at the time were the Nebulon companions, either heads or weapons or power units, and that's where that all comes in. Again, Nebulons were only in the Headmaster's final few episodes of the G1 series. we'll touch upon the Japanese stuff, but we are by no means experts on the Japanese releases. So it's probably better that we don't pretend we know everything and get lots of corrections, and just say right up front, we're going to just touch on it rather than talk about it in depth. We'll talk about what we know rather than coming across as uninformed. Um, yeah, so that's the basic sort of stuff there. So really, the only way that Powermaster Optimus Prime appeared in any form of Western media was through the comics. Um, Anything else you want to add to any of that?
No, I think the only thing I say to you is like we know and listeners will hear me talk about it. Around this time last year, I made a decision that I wanted to watch something new. There's not many of the Transformers series I've not watched, but the big one I'd watched Headmasters, and then I never got round to Victory or Master Force, and I still haven't done Victory. But I decided last year, with my love of Power Master Prime and Overlord, I thought I need to watch Master Force, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So much so that I am tempted to go back and rewatch it again this year, and just enjoy it a little bit more because the first time round I didn't catch it all because I was getting distracted by the kids and life and phones and business and but it really it captivated me. I was really impressed with it. So much so I now have a Masterforce shelf of in the collection. It justifies me buying more toys, which is always good. But that before we get into comics, I had nothing to go with it. As I said before, I didn't have the comics as a kid. We didn't have a comic shop. Our comic shop or a wee small news agents did like Beano and Dandy. Didn't do anything like Transformers or anything like that. So I never experienced the comic. So I had nothing for canon. I genuinely remember the first time seeing the Return of Optimus Prime and taking it back to the video shop going, this is missing part because it doesn't transform into the one in the bit. And they were like, that's the tape. And it obviously wasn't until internet and learning things that I understood what happened. So my connection to it was purely based on the toy. And I have started to reread, or I started during the summer rereading the G1 Marvel run, and I haven't got to the Power Master. Prime appearance yet, and I had fell away from it before Christmas, and I'm now desperate to pick it back up and start going again. So I might do that this coming week for my birthday, spend a bit of time reading some issues.
It's so weird to have a character or a version of a character that I've got such an affinity for and I love so much, that did not have no contact for it, which just
No.
sort of goes to show that these toys and this toy line, despite the fact that the cartoon and the comics and everything else were designed as advertising tools to make us buy these, by this point we were going to buy them anyway. And the
And
gimmicks and
I think it's a great, but that's a great point because it's like I just recently, in preparation for this, re-listened to Triple Takeover talking about the year that Power Master Prime came out, and they were like, you take any other toy out of that line, and not many people would miss them. Power Master, there's something very, very different about Power Master Prime. It has something very special about him, and as I say, I was out of Transformers and still felt that connection to it. I still had that affection for it and desire to go back and own it and have multiple versions of the characters without having any canon, any story to make me have that love, which is entirely different to the rest of my collecting. My G1 collection is pretty much based on it's focused, sorry, on the years that we had shows for the cartoon for, because I had more exposure to the cartoon than I had to toys. I had a small selection of toys. Cartoon was a bit. Then into Beast Wars, like we've talked about the love for Beast Wars because of the love for the show,
mm,
which then brought on to toys. So every other aspect of my love of the franchise is pretty much bore out of the show first and then the toys. There are exceptions. There are exceptions, but to have such a strong affection and connection to a toy that and as I say, I only technically owned it for the shortest of time, but that desire never went away from I want to own that toy again. And I have owned three really poor copies of secondhand ones, and then I've owned two copies of the really nice commemorative one because it was just I need this in my life. Never mind all
Yeah.
the extra ones, but we'll get to that.
We'll get onto the toys in a little while. Let's have a quick look at the comics. I'm probably going to put some pictures up. Who knows? Maybe I won't. Depends how much time I've got when I edit this. But in the comics, so Optimus Prime comes back as Powermaster Optimus Prime after being dead. Now I'm just going to have a quick go, very briefly, over the events that led up to that in the comics and how that sort of turned out. So Prime died in the original G1 comics after losing a computer game against Megatron. And as a result of losing that computer game, video game, whatever you want to call it, he was exploded and died, which I completely had forgotten until I did this research. It's kind of bonkers, really, that everybody's beloved character died. And let's not also forget that he died because he didn't, not because he lost the game, but he decided he lost because he was responsible for the death of virtual characters within the game, and his own code of honor dictated that even virtual life was sacred, and therefore he declared himself the loser and was exploded. So that was fun. But luckily, his core memories and all of his personality and everything else about him was somehow managed to be stored on a floppy disk.
1.44 megabyte worth of a flop. It wasn't even a floppy disk, that kind of floppy disk.
It
I'm sure
was,
it was the previous ones, wasn't it, actually? I said that and then I went, no, I remember looking at it going, how small was Optimus Prime's brain if it's on
yeah.
that floppy disk?
Um, if we were to equate it to something sort of similar, if you think about Captain America: The Winter Soldier, Armand Zola is stored on his mind is stored on an entire room worth of computers and
Yes.
whatever else. And Prime, it's okay. He got stored on. I mean, it's probably something, 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 Matrix something.
Yeah.
Um,
And I think the aspect is whenever I hear people question these kind of bits, I also always think, go, it's a show, comic, story about a transforming robot that come to Earth and decide to become Earth vehicles. Let's not throw
oh,
realism and question the sanity of these things. It's just a MacGuffin to make it work, and it did work. Like I've read that bit, I've got that far into the comic that he's died, and I was like, he's not dead. I can kind of guess that, and he'll come back at some point. I did not think the next time that I'm going to read about him, you've spoiled it for me, was when we get to this point, and I think that's crazy. And I'm now, as I say, I'm now excited now to go and get read that bit to get to that point. So, no, that's good.
So his death occurs in US comic issue 22, which is the UK comic 105 and 106 because they were sort of split across multiple issues. And obviously, if you recall, the UK comic was weekly as opposed to the American comic that was monthly. So there are many more issues of the UK comic. He did not come back to life and was not resurrected until US comic 42, 20 issues later, which was 176, 177 of the UK comic. So it's nearly 2 years of him being dead, which is quite a long time to be without Optimus Prime. I don't think I could probably cope with it that long these days. Normally, he gets killed and then is brought back to life within 50 minutes of a film or whatever else, or maybe he might be dead for a couple of episodes or something. I mean, he does die all the time, so it's
It
not
is.
not really a difficult thing to get your head around these days. But anyway, in the comics, the disc was taken to Nebulos, and they persuaded Haikyuu to assist and rebuild his body, and Haikyuu became his Power Master. And Powermaster Prime was born, and Powermaster Prime. Oh, although he did at first still think he was in a computer game and that nothing was real, until he experienced pain and then realized that he must actually be alive. That was the form that Optimus Prime had for the entire rest of the duration of the comic books, and even into G2. The Prime at first was that kind of design. One thing that always sticks with me about Powermaster Prime in the comics is his head design was just, it was so good. I really, really loved it. It was just so boxy and chunky. Yeah, with the massive, great sides. I mean, it bared sort of fairly little resemblance to the actual toy version. But yeah, it was just I love that design. So I
Yeah.
do have a couple of versions which I've got that head like the one that you just showed on Powerbaser, which might not have come out on the camera because I was talking. So it's fine. We'll skip it up. Yeah. So shall we? Now that we've covered Powermaster Prime, we'll very quickly touch on Ginrai, which I haven't made notes about, and I'm going to be very quick. So Transformers Master Force, and you're going to correct me because I'm probably going to get wrong. In Transformers Master Force, Ginrai is the name of the Power Master, so it's not actually Prime. It's the name of what would be Haikyuu, and Jinrai took on the a body of Optimus Prime, or a shell that was supposed to be going to be Optimus Prime, but ended up
Hmm.
not being. So he's not actually Optimus Prime at all in that show. He is Jinrai,
Nope.
who is a human who
Yeah.
has robot mech bodies.
Yeah, exactly, and like we talk about the aspect of Convoy versus Optimus Prime, the controversy around that. He's an entirely separate character, and you're right. Like that, I think that's the key difference. Whereas other versions, it's just a name change.
Mhm.
But in the Master Force, he is an entirely different character, as you say, a human who just happens to have the coolest wardrobe of all time.
Exactly. And for the purposes of my collection, Jinrai's count. Um,
Ginrai,
it
yeah,
definitely counts. So
yeah.
let's move on to the toys. Right, so we'll start with Power Master Prime. You've got the list of the figures, so you can do the main talking because my screen is showing the pictures. So, but Power Master Prime was the originator of this. So he came out in 1998. 1998, 1988.
1988.
So 4 years, the fourth year of the line. I mean, we've spoken about what came out
Yeah.
when and everything else to death. So we're not going to spend too much time over that. But look at him. He is just, he's just gorgeous.
And as I say, I've got to remember that one. I have. I did originally buy a copy of this off eBay, and it was not in great condition. But it was okay. It did me like when I first got eBay back in the late 90s.
Mm,
Um, and it did me for a while until I could upgrade. And I now have two other versions of that, like you're showing off yours as well. Like I have two versions of it. One that I keep in his Ginrai form.
mhm.
I do generally keep the reissue one. I keep him in the full armor, full shebang, and then I keep my other really good this is the worst condition one. The next one, the next quality one up, he stays in kind of Power Master Prime one because there's something nice about having the option to do all three. Like, why not?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you can see that when we go and show the slides for the other ones as well, you can tell there's a difference when you get to
Oh,
the
very
other
much
ones.
so.
You can see the difference in chrome and some paint bits, and it just changes up the toy, very much so.
So
I would like a nice copy of this. I have to say, a really nice copy of this. The one I've got is good, but it's still worn a bit. At some point, I may treat myself to a really nice copy, but I don't need to buy a new another. I've bought one at the last three TFNs. Like I've
well,
bought one. Honestly, at each of the last three TFNs,
you
I've bought
obviously
a
need
Master
to get
Print.
another one. I mean, this one, the one I got, this is. as good a condition as I could probably hope for it to be in. There's maybe the slightest touch of yellow in on the back, but it's not bad at all. And the stickers are all lovely, and it transforms fine. I think I haven't transformed it for years. It'll probably fall apart if I try, just to prove me wrong. But it's complete and it's lovely, and everything is super. And the chrome's even on the chrome. It's painted on chrome on his front grille there, and that's even pretty lovely. So I'm super happy with the one I have. Now, a couple of things about the toy. By our discerning modern standards, this toy is poo. It is a brick. It is a literal brick. You can move the arms, which are quite stiff, um, and that's it. That is it for posability on this figure. The legs, you could, if you really wanted to, you could separate and maybe give him a slightly janky pose, but he has no knees. The hips are only part of the transformation into base mode. That's it. The arms, again, you can move them out like that, which is again part of transformation rather than actual posability. The head doesn't even move. There's
No.
there's no posability in this thing whatsoever. But
But I
yeah, well,
know.
let's have your butt. What was your butt?
Wait, hold on, I'm going to try and fix my camera. My butt is, it doesn't matter. He is freaking awesome. I'm having problems with my webcam today. No, but my butt is that it is just such an incredible figure. It's so much fun. The Power Master gimmick in it, really clever.
Yeah, so the Powermaster gimmick itself is something we haven't really touched on, but I will show you an example of it whilst we're talking. But I'm going to do a proper video on this at some point anyway. But the 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 Powermaster goes into the front of his grill in truck mode, but that actually what it does is it unhooks. There's a little tiny hook in the bottom underneath there that hooks into a clip on his butt, I suppose, which means that he can transform. Without that, his legs won't come down. And I've just noticed what's wrong with this version. The clip's broken. Ha ha! That's probably why I got it so cheap. But Haikyuu should just come out and you can then transform it.
And thankfully,
There you
like
go.
it's the one bit that I've always made sure when I've picked up the second-hand ones, other than the eBay one, which was just lucky it still worked, making sure the clip still worked. And this is the only Power Master I've ever experienced, so I don't know how good the gimmick is on the other ones, but I thought this was very clever. I, I know that the headmasters obviously need the head to be a head. Yeah, that's an obvious bit, but I remember being like, what's the gimmick? I didn't really get it because by the time I got to kind of see it and play about with it, it was already transformed. Like, I don't really
Mm.
get why this is fancy, but I get it. Like as soon as you experience it proper, you're like, this is cool. This is kind of function. This is a kind of cool function. And then in modern times, being able to go back and watch the adverts that kind of push that gimmick.
Yeah. Yeah, again, it's just a really really fun figure. It's got a base mode. The truck mode looks enough like Optimus Prime, but it has the added features of all these weapons and stuff you can stick all over him. And of course, we haven't really spoken about it. He combines into this gigantic version of Optimus Prime, which was
Yeah.
just super super cool. Um, yeah, let's move on. So the next one that we've got on the slides is the Takara version, which is so this will be Ginrai as opposed to Powermaster Optimus Prime. There are some notable differences, as there always are with Takara figures as opposed to Hasbro figures. For a
Premium
start,
finish.
sorry, yeah, exactly, premium
Premium
finish.
finish.
It's just gorgeous. There's chrome on his legs. There's chrome on his smokestacks. It just the coloring just looks a little bit better. It's just a really really nice version, and the guns were a sort of a metallic grey rather than sort of grey. Um, but yeah, and that's the sort of par for the course with the Japanese stuff at the time
Yeah.
and moving forward. More attention to detail. They definitely give a little bit more care to these things. But I suppose maybe Japanese children care more.
Yeah,
maybe.
but it's a really nice version of it. It's a really um, it takes what is already a lovely toy and just adds a different level to it. I've not stickered this new version, so
Hmm.
my current one's the reissue, the Toys R Us reissue. So we had in Japan, this came out at the same time. So they released all three aspects. So
Hmm.
when I say all three aspects, you Ginrai, Super Ginrai, and God Bomber, who um, combines with Super Ginrai to become God Ginrai. They were released all at the same time, and then we obviously, as was talked about, we get we got a commemorative edition, but it was
Hmm.
the Japanese one rather than the UK. And I think that's really nice because it gave you a chance to experience the alternate mode, the colors on it, the chrome on it, and appreciate it. I remember seeing it and being like, I don't remember having that. Like, in fact, sure, because but this is the point where, as much as you're probably the same as me, you were on the internet, you weren't, it wasn't like the same as now where you knew everything was everywhere. It was a walk into Toys R Us and going, oh, look at that. Oh, I need to get that. I need to, and
Yeah.
it was a must buy, a must buy. I did then sell that one, but because apparently I needed to get married.
Yeah.
Always true.
Yeah, it's funny actually. This probably did come out the same year I got married, but I think I still bought it. 2003. Sounds about right.
2003, yeah,
Yeah,
2003.
that is the year I got married. Good grief. Right. Anyway, so yes. Now I will interject slightly here in
Yeah.
that I was more aware of Godmaster Optimus Prime back in those days simply because my mate's dad came back from Japan and had bought my friend Drillhorn, who is quite relevant at this point. Drillhorn, part of Leo Kaiser, member of Breast Force. Um, so the sort of around this sort of the Masterverse kind of Masterverse, Master Force sort of aspect of Transformers that we didn't really get. But Drillhorn came with a leaflet, the collector's catalog, and in that it had Godmaster Optimus Prime. I mean, it definitely said Godmaster Ginrai, but we didn't know what a Ginrai was, so it was Godmaster Optimus Prime as far as we were concerned. And it was this glorious piece of amazingness that we now have available to us, which at the time would have been like hen's teeth. Um, but it's just such a fun thing. You have an Optimus Prime that you stick a bit of, you combine with his trailer, and you get like this giant version of Optimus Prime. And then suddenly you've got this Japanese version where you stick more bits on, and he becomes an even more gianter with shiny chrome chest, a giant missile launcher that goes on his shoulder. He's got extended arms. He's got wings. He's got bigger, clumpy feet. And then you can take all those bits off, combine them together, and get this cool on his own right robot that's about the same size as Powermaster Prime combined. And then the trailer gets an extra bit of trailer, sort of well, it's just an extra bit of trailer, really. There's not really a lot else you can say about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, getting hold of it and having it when I first saw it in the shops, I was like, "Oh my God, they've released the Godmaster Optimus Prime. I need that." And I went back and bought it. And yeah, I only sticked mine up reasonably recently, but it's just so shiny, just probably just
Yeah.
shining away on the camera
Yes.
there.
Yes. Yes.
But
It's gorgeous. Just like you obviously heard me say that I kept Haikyuu.
yeah,
Even just getting the Haikyuu and going, oh my goodness, this is so much nicer. Just that kind of chrome on Haikyuu. It just every little bit of it, and
yeah,
even the Haikyuu. Let's see if I can get this to kind of show the detail. So you can see mine's is a wee bit rusted in his knees, but there's just that little different shade. It's not as if it's just a slight difference. There's enough in it to be feel like it's properly different, but that extra bit of chrome, it is. We hear the joke of the Takara premium finish, but it just shows that. that Takara premium finish has been around for a long, long period of time. A big part of the Transformers franchise has been that extra bit of detail. The other bit that and I'm going to just check and see if I'm right here. I may be wrong because I only have the reissue, the commemorative edition.
Hmm.
But the Ginrai, or the Super Ginrai cab, is die-cast rather than plastic. Was that the same in the original
Yeah,
Japanese release?
I imagine so. This very
Because
much
this
looks
is a
like
reissue, isn't it? Just a reissue. So, and I think that's the, and we're going to get to the masterpiece, but the masterpiece is such a, it's certainly a masterpiece Super Ginrai rather
hmm,
than a masterpiece Powermaster Prime. Which is
yes.
fine. Like, of course, as it's a Japanese release, it's a Takara release. There are options to do things in it to kind of make it feel a wee bit more kind of toy orientated, but it's still the toy that they're trying to represent. Oh, this camera is killing me today. They're trying to represent as Super God Jinrai rather than Power Master Prime. Uh,
But that's fine. But yeah, this is here's a weighty thing as well because of the amount of die cast in him, which I'm assuming that's the same in the Japanese version. I have never owned or experienced the actual Japanese version, just this Western reissue version. But the cab's got all the metal in it. There's all the vac um, chrome on him. It's just lovely. But one thing I have noticed, and I think this is the same on the Japanese version, the smokestacks are shorter than on the Western release, and that might be to incorporate the rocket launcher because the rocket launcher wouldn't fit if you had the taller smokestacks.
oh, I never even thought
So
about
I don't think it's because at the time the commemorative version had shorter smokestacks. I think it was just how it was in Japan, but I could be wrong on that. I didn't check that out before making this video. Right, let's pop him back down there. What was next on the old toys? Because there wasn't that many versions of this figure, official releases. The next one of those, what year was the next one that appeared?
that. Okay, so we have the reissues. Oh, there is a point to make that before we get into changed of versions, there was a very, you don't have a picture of this, but you have been teasing me with this
Oh yes.
for a
Hmm.
wee while, is the absolutely stunning Fire Guts God Jinrai. We don't need to talk about it because I don't want you to make me want it even more. But no, so 2000 and 2001, Japan got their God Ginrai reissue. 2002 was Fire Guts God Ginrai, and then it was 2003 for our the commemorative issue reissue with the Apex Armor, which is the one that we kind of love it so much. But you are very, very lucky to have the absolute gorgeous Fire Guts God Ginrai.
Yeah, I mean, I did pay for it. He wasn't a cheap boy, but yeah, he is stunning. I'm gonna do a video on him this week. I thought I might sticker him up on video. That could be fun, and give a proper show off of him. And of course, there's another version of him which you're also jealous of, which we'll talk about maybe
No,
a
and
little bit later.
I think the interesting bit with as in I know we're going to get to the masterpiece. There was a bit of me was like, are they going to recolor it as reissue it as that? And I remember first reading that there was going to be a recolor of the MPG, and I was like, oh, they're doing it, oh, they're doing it, and we'll talk about it, but they're not doing it yet.
Well,
It's Takara, so it would not surprise me in the slightest if they did it.
it is worth mentioning that don't think I put it on the list, but there was actually a black recolor of this of Powermaster Prime or Ginrai rather in Japan that is not a Nemesis Prime. They build it as Nucleon Quest.
Yep, yep.
I don't
Which is the MPG's called as well,
exactly.
isn't it?
Yeah, so and which means it's not a Nemesis Prime. It's not an evil version of Optimus Prime. It is in fact a good version of Optimus Prime, but in stealthy black and red coloring with Autobot symbols, not Decepticon symbols. So that's how you should know the difference between a Nucleon Quest Prime and a Nemesis Prime. I do not own any of them, and I should. I didn't even. It didn't even occur to me really that the Power Baser black version isn't Nemesis Prime. It's
Yeah.
Nucleon Quest. So I've let me to buy that as well. Brilliant, lovely. So moving on, there wasn't a
Moving
Powermaster
on
Prime. Yeah, there wasn't a version of Powermaster Prime until
into Titan's Return. So the next one we've got an image of is Titan's Return.
woohoo.
So Titan's Return, and there's a couple of different releases of kind of this mold and different bits.
Yeah,
So, but this was the very first release of it, in Titan's Return, and you can see it's got elements, and I think what we have to remember is that a lot of the that kind of period, the Titan's Return period, was still in the reimagining of
mm,
toys rather than trying to make them look very, very similar. A lot of the Siege stuff is very, very close to G1, but with a little bit more retouch. This was still a combination of both, and it's not a bad toy by any stretch. It just has limitations, as many others at that period. I don't have many hand mixes in the room.
yeah. I mean, the first version of this that came out, the Times Return version. So this is also in the period of pre-mold, remold, whatever else mold, and a lot of this was retooled to become Ultra Magnus, and
Yeah,
some of it does seem a bit clear that that's sort of what's going to be going on with it. Um, Plus sides, it's the first Paramount Optimus Prime we've had for a very long time. That's great. It also looks enough like Powermaster Optimus Prime.
yeah,
You've got all the right cues there. You've got all the different weapons, the guns. These actual guns I do not like, but that's fine. But he is posable. He still doesn't have a waist swivel.
no,
There's no waist swivel on this model, but you do have knees, and you can bend his legs, which you could never do. Oh, and all of his guns fell off. Just
yeah.
literally just fell off. Um, yeah, that was another problem. Those guns do not stay in very well. But part of the Titans Return gimmick was that he's a headmaster. Um, so that's a thing. Um, yeah, and also a couple of other sort of issues with it, I suppose. It's got you can see it in that picture. It's got very, very hollow arms.
Yeah.
And also, why did they decide that the best thing in the world to do with this toy was to make it in a weird brown plastic? It's almost as if they'd looked at the
Yeah.
original toy, but the only one that they had was one that had been badly yellowed. And they're like, oh, well, it's supposed to be that color, not grey.
Yeah.
I've no idea what that other gun's gone. I'm just going to have to
Yeah. No,
accept that and
I
move
think
on.
I agree. I think that's a frustration, and there are loads of little bits they could have done with this just to make it that little bit better. And listen, they did. They then released a slightly better version in the Siege of Cybertron gift set.
Yes, yes. And
Not again, not perfect, but a better version, a slightly better version.
so the thing with that was that in Japan in the LG line, they had uh, they had a version of God Bomber and they had a version of Power Master Prime or Ginrai that came out, and then they were re-released as a gift set of the two bots combined, although you could have combined the previous versions. But they did make a lot of changes to that mold. For a start, it was grey rather than beige. They changed the front cab because the cab for the Powermaster Prime was uh, very different with a massive front grille and a completely different aesthetic. But they made this version look a lot more like Powermaster Prime. And then doing all the combined kibble and everything else to make him into God Ginrai. Um, it looks a lot better. Uh, it's a
Mm.
much, much nicer figure. And as you say, this version, the version of the main core Ginrai in this, was released in the Siege of Cybertron box set in the West. Very limited, very difficult to get hold of, and very expensive. But the version in there was effectively the same version as the Japanese release. A couple of little tweaks here and there, I think. But they called it Magnus Prime, and technically is a different character, but
Yeah.
it's
It is. It isn't.
it
It
is. It
isn't. It
is.
isn't. But,
Yeah. Um, so yeah, that was the next version, and that's a gorgeous, gorgeous figure. It's really chunky. There's a lot going on. It's really nicely posable as well, but it does suffer a little bit from it's got so many bits stuck on it. By the time you try and pose it up, it has issues, shall we say. I didn't get
yeah.
him out because has a tendency to collapse.
So before we move on,
Mhm.
because one of the things I want to talk about when we get to the next one we're going to talk about is the reason we're here, is the recent masterpiece. But one of the complaints or one of the comments I've heard about the release, even before it was coming out, when it was just announced that it was MPG. So we have Ginrai as the final release of Masterpiece Line in MP60, and then we have Super Ginrai as MPG 09, which is the first one post Trainbots, so the
Mhm.
first kind of non-train bots. The train bots were of a scale of their own. They did not scale with any previous masterpiece. They scaled to go with their alt mode being a specific train gauge, which I can never remember. I'm not a train aficionado, so apologies. It's like a
How dare you?
O gauge or something like that. I can't remember, but it's that's what it's done with. So that's an exception to the rule. But when the announcement was made that Masterpiece Line was going to finish with MP60 and going to this, everybody's like, oh, it's two different scales, which made no sense from the very, very beginning because the Ginrai is the same Ginrai that goes into Super Ginrai. So it's if Ginrai is Masterpiece scale, then surely Super Ginrai is like that straight away. But actually, the more I thought about it, and I get people, and we're going to do a wee bit of comparison. We'll probably put some pictures up, and we'll do some shorts this week where we talk about the toys, because we have a big love for these toys. We have multiple versions, so we can talk in a bit more detail. The big complaint was that actually the MPG Super Genrai could probably work for Chug. And I can see why. I can see that you put Ginrai beside Studio Series 86 Prime, which is that what you're doing just now? No?
No, I was doing
Yeah.
it the other way. I
Okay. If you put Ginrai MP60 beside, it's very, very similar in size. So I can see that. I can see that point. However, if we then stop before we even got to that point, the question to you would be then, is this release, the LG release, the God Ginrai, is it chug scale? Because the challenge I have for you, if you go with a cartoon, God Ginrai is the same size as Brave Maximus. And
yeah.
I do not think, and I could be wrong. I don't own this toy. And you could turn around and go, yes, it is. But I do not think that this does not scale with LG Grand Maximus, which I do have. And it's a big 2 foot high or 2 and a bit foot tall toy. So if that doesn't scale, what scales out, like scales out, is either Super Ginrai's too God Ginrai's too small or Grand Maximus is too big. It's probably the Grand Maximus is scaled to be more the toy, and that's where the Chug makes its own scale up. It is what it is. It's toys released for toy size rather or for that specific toy release size rather than this has to be the size of this in the cartoon, this in the cartoon. Yes, they are trying to get better, but it's not. So when we get to if Chug is Chug God Rai meant to be this 2 foot tall? If that's the case, and masterpieces generally seem to be bigger, what the fuck size is masterpiece God Ginrai meant to be?
Yeah, I
That's
mean,
that's the it's continually people are keep talking about it, complaining about the size, and I'm like, I'm not in, I'm not. It doesn't stress me because I have the joy of. I love the toy for being the toy. Like I didn't have the affection for it being the character on screen or on the
Yeah,
comic. So it doesn't scale doesn't matter to me. I just love the toy. So I have a super articulated, super awesome toy. I'm not stressed with what it scales with. But
yep,
that will always be a challenge because what are you scaling it with? The Japanese didn't have the comic, so it shouldn't be the comic scale. It should be the cartoon scale, which then is Super Ginrai is Brave Maximus height, and is that Brave Maximus is actually smaller than Fort Max, sorry, because they're the same toy doesn't mean that in the cartoons they were the exact same size. The God Neptune and the Seacons, are they the same size? In theory, again, yes. And that then puts that into well, they're actually too small then compared to Grand Maximus as well. And it just, scale is not something we
yeah.
should, especially in toys that are getting released near 40 years after a cartoon that was made to sell a toy line to children. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. It was aimed at children. Not
So
us. Not us 40-year-olds who are now like, I want it all to scale perfectly. It doesn't happen.
I think the thing with Master Force, you had scale was wibbly anyway. Um, Fortress Maximus was always intended to be this gigantic thing, but in Master Force, he was the same size as Ginrai,
Yep.
as God Ginrai, as Powermaster Optimus Prime. So whether or not Ginrai mass shifted to become more giant, but then he's still comparable to other bots in there. They're sort of knee height as opposed to like where they would come sort of naturally. Um, so if we were to talk about this dude being in scale for Masterpiece, the criticism, well, not it's not even a criticism. He's obviously not the same scale as a Masterpiece Optimus Prime. You can tell that from the size of the truck. The truck is too small to be within scale of normal Masterpiece figures, and that's just simply the way it is. I mean, if you compare him to MP44, it's like MP44's little
Yeah,
brother.
yeah, yeah,
He's there's apples and oranges, and as you say, I did manage to get Studio Series 86 Prime. He's even a bit smaller than Studio
yeah.
Series 86 Prime. Um, Now, I will argue that the same as you, that it doesn't actually make a jot of difference what scale he is, because the simple fact is, if we wanted to have, as you sort of alluded to, if we wanted to have a masterpiece scale Optimus Prime, Powermaster Optimus Prime, Ginrai, whichever way you want to go, it would end up being an absolutely gigantic figure and cost a ridiculous amount of money. It already costs a ridiculous amount of money. I mean, we're paying something like 250, £260 for the Powermaster, the God Jinrai
Super
set, the
Ginrai.
Super Jinrai set, sorry. Um, and then it's another 150, 200 quid on top of that to get the God Bomber
Yeah.
set. Um,
And if you're like you and me, you also need, as much as Super Ginrai comes with a Ginrai, you need Ginrai as well. Like you do, you do.
yeah, I mean, you do. Yeah, it's a slightly different paint scheme, if nothing else. Um,
Because I actually preferred this for the Ginrai. So this is the one from MPG 9, and I decided that was going to be my Ginrai rather than the one that comes with
hmm.
MPG, rather than the one that comes with MPG 9. So this is, I think, one the one you've got on the screen is the actual MP60, and it is down to
Yes.
preference. It's like purely down to preference, of course it is. And what I did like about the when we get to MPG 09 is it gives you alternative options. This one doesn't, because of the fact you're going to get a second version of them in
Hmm.
MPG 09. But let's just talk firstly about this bit before we go on to Super Ginrai. I remember telling you. I opened him. I opened up. I got both of them. I think MPG 9 landed first, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna wait till you and I have got them." I didn't in the end, but I then when MP60 arrived, I was like, "Do you know what? I'm just gonna do this guy," and I was in love. Like I. continually will tell you that I think the best masterpiece Transformer released is Soundwave because he is a beautiful bot mode, a beautiful alt mode, and he's a fun transformer. He is not a transformer you need the instructions for. Now, it's just muscle memory. It is, there is a little bit of complexity in it, but it's not a difficult transformation, and it's in fun transformation. And this is a brilliant way to sign off Masterpiece, like that first numbering system. We know that my understanding the change in the lineup is that similar to, was it MP9 was meant to be actually a transition when MP10 was the same? I can't
Hmm.
remember. But anyway, so MP10 and MP1 are totally different scales. MP10 was it was the kind of point, the pivotal point. I'm sure MP9, sorry, was meant to be it as well, but it doesn't feel really like it's in scale. It feels a bit of mix and match in both as well. But MP10 was kind of that new scale for everything, and it stuck with that scale pretty much all the way through. My understanding is that it had became very cartoon aesthetic, and this new change is the G stands for like great essentially. Like it's meant to be that it's a amalgamation and it's the best version of the toy rather than being a specific. This is perfect to the cartoon or perfect to the bit, which is even better because then you don't have to worry about the scale. You just need to go with this is a bit. This is the best version of Ginrai. This is the
Yeah.
best version of Super Ginrai. I expect it'll be the best version of God Ginrai. And I think that makes the scale question becomes, the scale question is difficult in MPG anyway because the next ones up are reissue or not reissues, repaints of Jetfire, which was a masterpiece scale. So MPG's masterpiece scale. The are they doing a are they doing a Prime as well? They're doing a MP44 repaint. Is that right?
I think it's a shattered glass, maybe.
Got a glass, yep. And then they've got the Diaclone version of
Hoist.
Ironhide.
Oh, Ironhide.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Hoist as I
yeah.
as Ironhide. And then they've got Rat Trap, which is in scale with the rest of the Beast Wars masterpiece. And I remember when that was announced, people were like, "Oh, look, he's MPG because he's smaller." No, he's smaller because he's a freaking rat and not a gorilla. Like he still scales. Like look at the pictures. He
Yeah.
scales with the rest of the Beast Wars. He scales with Masterpiece, i.e., MPG scales with Masterpiece. It just those train bots confuse matters. But I think it is back to it's not about being a perfect version of an animated version. It's they're looking for the best version of that character.
Yeah.
There'll be a combination of toy, cartoon, and the MPG 9 comes with multiple options to give you the kind of different bits. And again, it comes with a set of stickers. And I made the decision that my birthday's coming up this week that I was going to get the sticker set out for the commemorative Prime and the MPG Prime, and I'm going to sticker them all up and make them all look very pretty, and it's going to be such a lovely time. I have no children during the day. I have peace and quiet to do it, and it's going to be so much fun. But this, honest to goodness, I have raved about this, and I raved about it to you, upsetting you because you didn't have yours yet. But I was like, I am shipping you copies of these. You hadn't decided where you were getting them from yet, and I was like, I'm shipping you copies. I don't worry about how we're doing finances or anything. Listen, I just need you to have a copy of this. I need you to experience it so that I can, because the as much as I wanted to do this episode, I wanted to chat with you, somebody who I know would appreciate it as much as I have. And I am taking it. I'm going away for my birthday at the end of the month with two of the fellas from Transformers Show, and I'm taking it with me because I'm like, you need to experience this. Everybody needs to experience this toy. It is such a wonderful, wonderful toy, and the challenge I have is that when God Bomber comes, I need another one because I can't not have him. And I'm like, well, what do I do? Like, and then do I want a second one to have like kind of toy style, one and two style? Oh my goodness, it's so expensive. And then
Yeah.
there's the black one coming, and it's just, but it is genuinely. I said to you when we were prepping for this, last year my toy of the year, hands down, was Missing Link Prime
Mhm.
because it just wowed me, and I just every time I looked at it, I just got that was an amazing experience to open it and feel. I have that feeling already with this, and I'm like, we're it was only January. Like it was the first one of the first toys I got in January, and I'm like, I can't wait to see what's going to try and top it because it's going to take something special to top it because this is a great toy, and it's like back to masterpiece doesn't have to be overly engineered,
No.
difficult, huge. It has to be the best version of it, and this, in my opinion, is the best version of Prime, Powermaster Prime, Ginrai, Super Ginrai, and eventually got Ginrai.
Yeah, no, there's nothing really I can add to what you just said. It's a gorgeous, gorgeous toy. I think, yeah, who cares what scale it is? It doesn't matter. I mean, I have Optimus Primes in literally every scale you can think of, from this size all the way up to Lewin Atlas of like 2 foot tall Optimus Primes. So yeah, scale I think is if you care about scale, then that's fine. You do you. Um, but this guy, he is not a scale that matches up to anything else. I would even argue he's not even Chug, in a different. I
Yeah,
mean, he could fit into Chug if you wanted him to, and if that's what you want to do, brilliant, you do that. But he's just gorgeous, and you have pointed out that I will need to buy another one, which I hadn't thought of and don't like. Um, but at the same
yeah,
time, I
no.
will like it. Yeah. So
And they
you,
got even the bigger challenges then, and we've talked about this, is the God Ginrai the God Ginrai comes in two options, comes as just the kind of God Bomber itself, and then has the commemorative box, the big box set, which has additional parts
yeah,
for a toy version. And I know they did that with the Raiden. They did that, which is good. The Raiden gift set came with parts for to make it. Was it unreleased Diaclone versions of
mm,
the combiner? So I like that. Like if you're going to buy the box, there should be something special to get as well. So the box will allow you to display it as a box set. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to buy a third copy just to keep in a box.
no,
I'm not. No, no, I'm not. But so let's talk about this stunning toy, and in all its glory. Um, yes, it's not Power Master Prime because
no,
it's not,
but
but
it is.
it's the like so you when we were doing our preamble talk the other night about
Yeah,
this, you hadn't opened it yet,
no.
and then it was beautiful to see because you cut it up, the tape open, and you opened it up, and you had the same reaction as me. And I said this to you when I did it. I went, "Oh my goodness, I can't wait to like it just wows you." Box, I was like, "Oh my goodness, this looks amazing!" It just gave all the feels, and I was like, "I am so looking forward to this." And again, for me, it's a really enjoyable transformation. It's not overly complex. It's not simple. It's not
Yeah,
as simple as the original one was. Obviously, it's masterpiece, but it's got some really clever bits. It's got some good engineering. It's got some clever hinges in it. It's
yeah.
really, really, really nice.
I did have a bit of a look at the instructions when I was going along, but only because I didn't want to break it.
Yeah,
If any, I got to a point where I was like, "Oh, I'm not entirely certain what I'm going to do now. Let's just have a quick check of the instructions." But most of it was pretty intuitive. There's a nice little sort of foot rotate thing that goes on, which I really quite enjoyed. Um, I'm gonna make some criticisms because if I don't, this is
yeah,
gonna sound like, oh, we love everything, which we do, which is part of our problem, and your problem because you're watching us talk about things. Um, is there's two things I don't like. One is the arms in truck mode. Why? Is there could they not have some way of making those not extended outwards like that? They're not in any other version of it like that. It seems
yeah, yeah.
such an issue that I don't know how they
Agree. No,
could
I
have.
agree. I agree.
I mean,
Agree.
the hands fold up into the forearms, so you can't push it up there. But it's just like it's like they
It,
couldn't
yeah.
figure out how to fix that issue, and then went, ah, it'll be
No,
fine. And
agree.
I'm not a fan of. the sort of neck plate for the where the head goes on, which happens with some versions of this, and to be fair, happened with the original version. But
Yeah,
the sort of extra sticking out neck thing, it's not my favorite thing. But that
no,
said, everything else about it is that's just lovely. I just did a
yeah,
little size comparison of him and the original one, and he is so much taller, but he's not skinnier per se, but he's skinnier, if that makes sense.
yeah. His
Um,
proportions are better. He's better proportioned.
Exactly. He's got because
All
the
over.
original one had really short legs and this one hasn't. And it's posable to the nines. And you've got two different alternate heads with like red eyes and slightly different variations on the head. Um,
What
yeah.
head did you go with? What did you?
I
I've got.
just got the stock head on at the moment, the blue eyes. I will probably swap it to the red eyes because then it'll be more like toy
Yeah.
version.
Again, I think
You
I
stick
do think I
stickers on
need a
as well.
second. I think I need a second in toy mode. I don't know. I could easily see me having two or three of these. Like I've got well, I only have two versions of Power Base. I know you've got more.
Hmm.
It just is just it's wonderful. It's a wonderful toy, and I
Yeah.
know there are. We've got we do have other toys we can showcase on, but I think the aim will be let's do videos this week, shorts this week where we'll highlight a version of this toy or this character in other toys. So we'll have a short on Power Base. Well, don't you do a short on Super God? I can't I get the God Guts, Fire God Guts. I can't deal with it. We'll do
There'll
we'll do
be
a couple.
two videos on that.
We'll have a couple of shorts that we'll talk through because we always go back to Power Baser, but the one that I bought post spending a weekend with you at TFN and
Hmm.
make me have an Optimus Prime themed weekend,
Mhm.
I bought this one. Oh, when
It's
I got with TFN,
what's his face?
Make Toys
Make toys.
Cross
Yeah,
Dimensions or
the
something. Because I'd got the
Striker
black.
Manus. No, not Striker Manus. The other one. Ah, that one.
Shadow Manus is the one that I'd got at TFN, the black version of.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, this is really nice. And then got that for a steal on AliExpress. So we'll chat them in separate shorts and
Yes.
chatting through, because there's a lot in this. But I think it has to be said that Masterpiece are finished off. Final thought on this toy. MP60 being the final Masterpiece toy is a fantastic toy to finish with. The
Definitely.
MP1 that does again back to scale, thinking of a toy that doesn't really scale all the issues with scale. MP1 doesn't scale anything really, but
No.
it's one of the best toys you will own. It is such a wonderful, wonderful thing, and I will never get rid of it because it is one of my favorite Optimus Primes. We then go to the MP60 being the final one, which again, the argument, I can see the arguments, and I'm comfortable
Hmm.
that there is an argument that he's too small, but he's absolutely wonderful. So you've got two bookends of the Masterpiece line being two wonderful versions of, I know it's Ginrai, but we're comfortable enough to call him Optimus Prime. And then MPG '09, the kind of first one post train bots, didn't do the train bots, didn't have any desire to do train bots.
No.
And I don't know if I'll buy any of the recolors. I might buy. I said that I do want the black Jetfire, and I do want the MPG 9. I'm like, geez. Um, but I think it excites me about the future of Masterpiece as it goes forward. Like I can't wait till we sit and do an episode where we talk about how we feel about the full God Rai version of him. Like it's going to just be such an enjoyable experience. So yeah,
Yeah, I mean, again, there's nothing else. I could talk for hours about how wonderful this figure and this version of Optimus Prime is, and Ginrai, obviously. Uh, but yeah, we don't want to be mooning over it too much. I haven't had enough of a play with this figure. I fully admit. I do need to. I haven't tried base mode yet. I haven't tried any of the alternate heads. I haven't tried the lightning effects yet. But it is a lovely figure, and as you say, it's a this is a wonderful way to cap off Masterpiece. There were four Optimus Primes within the Masterpiece, all of which are completely different scales, completely different aesthetic, and yeah, I think you're right. It's more about them being the best version at that time as well
Yeah.
of that figure of that character that is possible. And yes, we can argue that there are better versions in third party, perhaps. Um, but I actually would there'd be a bit of an argument there. I think I I will put my hands up and say that this is the best version of Ginrai Powermaster Optimus Prime out there in terms of it being a version of that character uh, and
Yeah,
that
I agree.
toy and that animated model. There are Power Baser. I love Power Baser, but it is a different version. It is a their own take on it,
Stylized.
and it's
Yeah, it's
stylized.
very
The
stylized.
same with Striker Manus or whatever. It is Striker
Yeah, yeah.
Manus. That
Yeah,
is it.
Striker
Yeah.
Manus.
Um,
Striker Manus and Shadow Manus. Yeah.
yeah, and then there's the KFC one, which I could do an entire video on how much I hate that toy. Still have it, and it's there behind me. Um,
It still looks nice.
oh,
It
it
does look
does.
nice.
It does look nice. It is a nice looking toy. I need to do a whole video on that figure, um, because I have things to say.
Once you've had therapy about
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Right. I think that's about gonna wrap this up, to be honest, because otherwise we will
Well,
just completely.
the final slide, you have one final slide
Oh,
because
yes,
the new
of
name of
course.
this series is called Tech Specs. So it's only right that we conclude this episode where we look a little bit at the tech specs of Optimus. Well, it says Optimus Prime, but Power Master Prime. I always think that's funny when you see it. It's like Autobot Optimus Prime. Well, no, Power Master Prime, surely. Anyway,
Yeah. Yes. So I could read this out, but I'm not going to. But yeah. So this is his tech specs. We love tech specs. He is. If you had your little red thing that you could put over, you could see that he's all in the high numbers, all pretty much tens. Apart from his speed is quite slow because he's a lorry, and
yeah.
lorries don't go that fast.
Hmm.
But yeah, the tech specs. I mean, it was just an idea for a name of the show. But why not show the tech
I like it.
specs?
Yeah, I agree.
It's a good fun idea. Anyway, I'm going to wrap things up now. This has been our first episode of Tech Specs. We're going to pick a different character, a different figure, a different toy, a different something for next episode. This show will be monthly. So one of these every month, and we've got a different show which we're going to premiere next week, which we're going to keep under wraps for now. Might get some shorts in between time, so you can get a little bit of teaser about what it's going to be. But we're going to have different shows every week of the month, rather than having rolling out that was a continuing thing every week. Apart from when we got tired or bored or lost or confused or ran out of time. So this is going to stick with that. So please do like and subscribe and join us next time for another exciting episode of Tech Specs. Thank you for watching. I have been
Thank
Oddimus
you.
Prime.
And I've been PrimeTime off.
Prime, I don't have much time today. I'm working on a special project for school.
What's it about?
Prime, just tell me how you and the other Autobots got to Earth.
Okay, Tommy. I've handled enough emergencies to know that some things just can't wait.